Yo, what is going on YouTube? This is Jake Cameo from CoreGaming, and today I have a very special duel for you guys. So I recently uploaded the my Darkest Diablos, or Diabolos, sorry, that's so hard to say, Darkest Diabolos Lair of Darkness pure build, and I just wanted to show you guys, I wanted to showcase this in a matchup that people are A, super excited for, and B, kind of terrified for. So we all know that the Castle of Stromberg deck, the Cinderella deck, the Fairytale deck, that deck is coming out, and there is a lot of hype about it, and there is a lot of worry as well, because it does seem like it can get through a lot of things, and it does seem like it does have some major play that it can do. Well, I want to showcase, whether we win or lose, I want to showcase what the Darkest Diabolos deck can do against that deck. So I went on Dueling Book, and the first matchup I went against was the Castle of Stromberg Fairytale deck. So we will go ahead and play this and see how this turns out. I just wanted to showcase this to you guys. We do go second, but I wanted to showcase this to you guys because I was pretty hyped. I was pretty hyped through this duel. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was actually like really worried going against this deck too, because I'm sure you'll notice before I do. I notice in the duel, but there is a misplay of sorts that I do. Where my Darkest Diabolos is in the graveyard, and I forget about him completely. I forget he's even there. Like, that's how worried I am going against this deck. But my opponent plays Stromberg, and he gets his effect off and such. Oh boy, and this is a long duel, so prepare yourselves, because this is a long duel. Not like super long, but it definitely goes for a few turns for sure. So he plays the Castle of Stromberg, so we're going to pause this here real quick. Make this video even longer, why not, right? Golden Castle of Stromberg. Super cool card. Very, very terrifying card. Once per turn, during your standby phase, you can banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down, or this card is destroyed. So that's the cost to keep it around during your standby phase. During your main phase, you can special summon one monster that specifically lists the card Golden Castle of Stromberg in its text from your deck. You cannot normal summon set the turn you activate this effect. You can only use the effect of Golden Castle of Stromberg once per turn. Cool. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy the attacking monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack of the monster, half the attack that monster had on the field. So say we attack with Lilith at her full 2,000. We would take 1,000 damage, and our Lilith would be destroyed. So this is a very, very terrifying card, and it's with the combo with some other cards in the deck that can protect it. Oh man, it's super terrifying. But he does get his Hex Trude out, which is a super cool card, and me personally, I'm super excited for this deck. But if Golden Castle of Stromberg is on the field, you can normal summon this card without tributing. Once per turn, if a Golden Castle of Stromberg is on the field zone, you can target one card on the field, destroy it, and if you do, this card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target one face-up monster you control. It gains 400 attack. So very, very, like, this deck is pretty much broken. Let's just go ahead and say it. This deck is pretty much broken. Like, if it wasn't for such a high cost to keep Castle of Stromberg on the field, this deck would be top tier, #1 for sure. So, well, let's go ahead and continue onward with the deck. We draw into, or with the battle, the duel, we draw into Chronograph Sorcerer. So I'm sitting here thinking, what should I do? Should I Lair of Darkness? Should I Dragon Shrine? I choose to Dragon Shrine first and foremost, so that I can get my Diabolos into the graveyard, because that's what I'm going to want to do, because no matter what, I have 2 options to tribute here, and I could even use the Lair of Darkness to, and you know, I have tribute options, so I wanted Diabolos in the graveyard. So I go ahead and play Lair of Darkness, and I'm so glad I do because that makes my opponent worry super bad. They're like, oh no, Lair of Darkness, let's pay half our life points and Solemn Judgment it. So that was a good kind of bait, I suppose. So you kind of in this deck you kind of want to use your Lair of Darkness that's going to make everyone worry. You want to use your Lair of Darkness as bait for any cards like Solemn Judgment or things like that. So and your searchers like Arima and Terraforming, they're also going to be bait as well because when people find out that they're going against Lair of Darkness, they worry about this card so much. And my opponent says, that Judgment came in clutch. Oh, man. So, my next play here, I do believe I'm going to obviously think about it for a little while because this is a very terrifying deck, as I've already reiterated many times. This is a very terrifying deck. So I'm going to choose to opt out and just go ahead and get a special summon off Chronograph Sorcerer. So I'm going to play Chronograph Sorcerer in the Pendulum Zone, and then use his effect to pop him into my extra deck and go get Time Gazer Magician. He said, "Rip Astrograph." Maybe he thought I was playing Pendulums or something like that, but no, that is definitely not the case. So we get our Time Gazer Magician, which that's really all we need him for. We need him, our Time Gazer, because he is A, he's a level 3, and B, he's a dark monster, so that can also come into play as well. So there's two things that work in our favor right there. So we get basically a free level 3 dark monster, so that's pretty good. I say free, but it costs us a chronograph, but still. So then I go ahead and set the Grinning Grave, just in case he has anything that can get rid of cards in our hand, because I wasn't too familiar with the Fairytale deck, so this is literally my first time ever facing against this deck. So then I play Lilith and go ahead and make her attack 1,000. So then I'm sitting here contemplating, what can I do? Oh man, I could tribute my Time Gazer and go get the trap cards like that, but I already have a Grinning Grave, so let's just go ahead and risk the biscuit. I'm going to go ahead and activate a Lair of Darkness and hope that I get a dark monster and a good card. So we go ahead and we get Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries and Arima, the Wicked Warden. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that right there. Obviously, I did banish the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries for the main reason that our opponent has no extra deck. So Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries is literally only fodder at this point. I'm not going to get any pluses off her effect, anything like that, so I go ahead and use a Lair of Darkness on my Ghost Reaper because that card that he was so terrified about and willing to spend half his life points about has just entered my hand again through Arima. So let's go ahead and continue onward. So now I go ahead and use Effect from Hand. He's like, oh man, okay. So we'll search my deck for our second copy of Lair of Darkness. As I've stated before, or as I stated in the deck profile here, there are so many ways for you to have Lair of Darkness in your hand that it's literally a non-issue. If your opponent targets, if you don't start your hand with Lair of Darkness, it's literally a non-issue. You almost always have Lair of Darkness until you run out, obviously. But hopefully by the time you run out, the duel is already done. So I used Lilith's effect, and he said cost. So I chose his Hex Trude. And so he killed my Lilith, but I killed his, or I tributed his Hex Trude. Now at this point, I could have gone into my Diabolos that's in my graveyard. But again, as I stated in the beginning of the video, I forgot the card even existed. I forgot everything about that card. I was just trying to figure out any way possible that I could get past this golden castle of Stromberg. So, but I go ahead and I did that combo. So now that I have 2 Crush Card viruses and a Grinning Grave virus. So I go ahead and tell him, left to right. The first one's 1 through 2, and then 3 and 4, and then the other one's 5 through 6. So he gets a 2. So that means that our first card crush here is going to be the randomized target, or randomized selection, I should say. So bam, we got a crush card virus. And because we tributed, at the end of our phase, Lair of Darkness will give us a token that is 1000, 1000 attack. So I go ahead and declare the end phase, because there's no way that I can attack because of Golden Castle of Stromberg. So we go ahead and get our little Torment token. So now it's his turn, and now my trap cards go into effect. So I'm going to go ahead, he's going to go ahead and pay the 10 cards from the top of his deck cost to keep Castle of Stromberg. But I'm going to activate Card Crush Virus in his standby phase on my token. So I use my token as tribute, and so because I do that, tribute 1 dark monster, blah blah blah. Your opponent takes no damage until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. Also, you look at your opponent's hand, and all monsters. So the only 2 monsters he had were those 2. It was another Hextrude and then this one, Iron Knight. So they were both 1500 or more attack. So they go to the grave. And then I ask him any cards from deck, because it also gives you the option to send other monsters from the deck. But obviously, because you have to pay such a heavy cost, you don't really want to send more from the deck to the grave. So he goes ahead and he activates his special summon from the deck ability of Castle Stromberg. And I go ahead and I try to give him a little smiley face, a little reassurance. During your end phase, you get a token though. So he special summons Hextrude, which that kind of makes me worried. So I go ahead and activate my Grinning Grave virus that I had face down. So if you're unfamiliar, tribute 1 dark monster with 3000 or less attack, 26. Your opponent destroys 1 card of their choice in their hand or deck for every 500 attack that that monster had on the field. If you tributed a monster with 2000 or more attack to activate this card, look at all cards your opponent draws until their third turn after this card's activation, and destroy all monsters among them. So basically, for 3 turns, he cannot draw a monster. And sent to the graveyard. Or cards destroyed and sent to the graveyard by this effect cannot activate their own effects the same turn. So even if he had a card that could activate from the grave, if it's sent to the grave by Grinning Grave, no effect. So he has to basically get rid of cards equaling up to 26 or 25 in this case, because it's in 500 percentages. So he can either destroy like the card in his hand, and then 4 from the deck, or 5 from the deck. Either way, he has to get rid of 5 cards because of Grinning Grave, because I'm using it on his Hextrude. So let's go ahead and play that. Oh, and then I tell him, oh, you get 2, because at the end of the end phase, since it's his turn, he will get 2 tokens, 2 torment tokens. So I believe now he's probably reading the card, and he's getting ready to get rid of the 5 cards and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I tell him as well. But so excuse me while I take a sip of water and everything, and you can just watch the duel progress here. So I see he's only sending monsters. So I go ahead and in the chat I tell him that the card, it says card, so it doesn't have to be monsters. So then I think he goes into the deck, and yeah, okay, he goes back into the deck after seeing that, and finishes out his 5 cards. So then he sends a Cup of Ace. And now it's his end phase. Because the only card that he has in hand, I believe, is Terraforming. So he's got a Terraforming, so he can get another Castle of Stromberg if he wants. And then he's got 2 Torment tokens with 1,000, 1,000 attack. And then I keep this on the field, and I'm going to go ahead and put some counters on it so that I can remember that each turn afterwards he's got to show me the cards that he draws and so on and so forth. So, but then I draw into Sangan. So this is where this is actually a very pivotal moment in the duel, because I draw Sangan, who is a level 3, and because I don't run too much, actually I don't think I run any back row destruction really. This is very, very important, because this is the only way I'm going to ever be able to get rid of Castle of Stromberg, even though he's got a Terraforming in hand. So I'm sitting here contemplating and everything like that, and I say, you know what? I 100% forgot I had Diabolos in the grave. So this is the moment where I realized Diabolos was in my grave. But so this is the moment I realized this is the only play I can really do against this deck to keep myself from just absolutely being, ran over. So I go ahead and go into the Phantom Knights of Breaksword. So with this card, you can obviously detach a material and target a card on my side of the field and their side of the field and destroy them. So the only card being on my field other than Breaksword would be Lair of Darkness. So I go ahead and get rid of Lair of Darkness since he doesn't have any monsters in hand. All he's really got is these 2 1,000, 1,000 tokens. So I go ahead and get rid of my Lair of Darkness to get rid of his Castle of Stromberg. Now keep in mind he does have a Terraforming, but that does mean that I will get at least 1 attack this turn. So and bye-bye token. So that was the end of my turn. Now for his turn. So I am nervous all over again. He drew into Cinderella, which Grinning Grave Virus will get rid of Cinderella. I'm not 100% sure why he said safe in the chat. I actually did not even notice that in the actual duel itself. But Cinderella is not safe because Grinning Grave destroys any monsters. It says, and destroy... Okay, so he used Terraforming to go get a Castle of Stromberg. But it says, look at all cards your opponent draws until the end of their 3rd turn after this card's activation and destroy all monsters among them. So any card he draws, I see it, and if it's a monster, it's gone. It's bye-bye. I believe this is a moment where he probably just went and read the card. That's probably what took a little second there. And then he activates Castle of Stromberg. So now I'm in a predicament all over again. Because now he can use Stromberg's effect. And I tell him he might still come back though, which sucks. So I am not confident in the slightest at this point. So he special summons Cinderella from the deck, which is really the key card of the deck, because Cinderella can special summon Pumpkin Carriage, which Pumpkin Carriage can protect Golden Castle of Stromberg. So it's a huge combo that's incredibly hard to get around unless you run a lot of maybe monster destruction or back row destruction. It's a really tough deck to go against. And honestly, I'm extremely excited to for these cards to come out because me personally, I am definitely going to build this deck because it is one of the original decks from the original Yu-Gi-Oh series, and it's not it had not been released until not even yet. It's not even released yet. Um, it had not even been thought about being released until recently. So I am extremely excited for this. Um, but I don't remember what's taking so long. I think they're just contemplating what they're going to do because really there's very little they can do. All they can really do at this point is attack directly with Cinderella for 13, and then move the glass slippers to another monster on the field. So they could move it to my break sword, or the token. I think you can equip tokens. I'm not positive, but they can move it to carriage, anywhere they want. And I just go ahead and make sure, because as I said, this is my first time ever facing the deck, so I make sure, you always want to make sure about effects and such when you're facing a deck, especially when you're not familiar with. So I go ahead and ask just to make sure. So it is 13, correct? And he says yes, so of course. So I go ahead and take that whopping 13 damage, and now Cinderella can give the glass slippers to another monster on the field. So who will she give it to? That was my roulette sound. Yeah, that was a little more awkward than I thought it'd be. Anyway, equipped to carriage, he says. So he's going to equip his glass slippers to his carriage, which I find to be a little odd, but I'm like, okay, okay. If it were me, I would probably equip it to break sword, although maybe he's hoping I'll forget Stromberg is there and attack with break sword, so that could be why he put it on carriage. But then I draw into a Lilith, so I go ahead and play Lilith, making her attack 1000. And then I use Lilith's effect to tribute one monster, reveal 3 normal traps, blah blah blah. And then the plays kind of pop off here, because then I have a strategy in my head. Basically, once I play Lilith and I can see that I can go into my deck and get more traps and a tribute off, because I remembered that I had Diabolos. This is where like the strategies are starting to roll in my head, and this is kind of where I don't know if the tides shift or not, because I feel like it's pretty much been okay, I have to try to catch up, like, granted they spent half their life points on Solemn Judgment, but I feel like I have to catch up. Like the entire duel, I felt like I had to catch up. But anyway, so I say, Lilith effect? He says, but why though? And this is why. Because I go into the deck and I grab 3 traps. A 1000 attack, because if I can get a Lair of Darkness, then these guys are up for tribute. All of the monsters on his side of the field are up for tribute. And then I get a generic tribute, so I could tribute basically any monster. I could tribute my own break sword, or I could, if I get Lair of Darkness, I could tribute his monsters. And then I get a deck devastation virus. So once I have this in my head that I'm going to get Diabolos off of Lilith's tribute, then I go ahead and grab this one as well, because this one would destroy all of his monsters on the field if I can get it. So I say same deal, so left to right, and then so that equals 5 and 6. So he rolled a 6, so I get Deck Devastation Virus, which is honestly a really, really good. So then I say effect from grave. I forget to set it, of course, but it doesn't really matter at this point. So effect from grave. I special summon Darkest Diabolos, the boss monster himself. And then I go into the battle phase, because I almost forget that Stromberg is there. And then I immediately catch myself before I click anything. I'm like, wait. Before I attack, that card is still there and can destroy all my cards. So then I look at my field and remember to set the deck devastation, and then I'm like, okay, I cannot attack this turn. He has no cards in hand to use Darkest Diabolos' effect. I could use Break Sword's effect, but what good would that really do me? So basically, I've come to the conclusion that, okay, I cannot attack. So I go ahead and end my turn. And because it's his turn, now, and he still has to reveal because of Grinning Grave, so I see that it's a terraforming and not a monster, which is fine. But now he has to pay his cost for Golden Castle of Stromberg, and if you remember, he only had 11 cards after he drew the terraforming. So he will only have 1 card in deck. So he has to get rid of 6,700 life points this turn. And his terraforming is next to useless, because even if that last card was Golden Castle of Stromberg, he would deck out. So I go ahead and use Deck Devastation Virus on my Darkest Diabolos, destroying all his monsters. And again, I keep this on the field and put some counters on it. But that is it. He's like, okay, I've got a terraforming and 1 card in deck left, so I'm going to go ahead and scoop. But that was the duel, and that was truly, truly a terrifying duel. But I wanted to go ahead and showcase this duel to you guys because A, I'm super proud of this duel. B, I'm super proud of how I kind of danced around Golden Castle of Stromberg, making it not really worth keeping on the field, but because that's what what the deck revolves around, it kind of has to stay on the field. So basically, the Darkest Diabolos deck can go up against really good decks, and I kind of showcased you guys a way to kind of get around Golden Castle of Stromberg deck, the Fairytale deck that's coming out. So I felt like this was a very good showcase for you guys. So anyway, if you guys like this video, hit that like button down below. Leave your comments and criticisms down below in the comment country. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to become an Ojama yourself. We're a very, very big family here. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are awesome. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.